What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 90. Brendan Allen taking on Chris Curtis for the second time. But real quick, man, I want to go over the results for the betting on last week's card. Um, I had a play on Andre Lima that hit. I had a play on Rose Namajunas that hit, and I had a play on Stephen Wynn. That one didn't hit. And I made a little bit of money with the live betting and stuff, but Stephen Wynn killed my parlays. Um, yeah, it just sucks. Sometimes you put too much faith in the guys coming off the contender series, and um, even though I tell myself not to do that all the time, I still end up doing it a lot. So, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again on this card, I mean, so, either way, man, uh, ended up coming out with a little bit of money on that card. And, yeah, man. So let's see where we at here. Please like and subscribe, guys. It'll help me out a lot. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and give out all my picks for each of the fights, and then at the end of the video, I give out my bets. I always give out my bets for free. I don't charge for anything. Um, and if you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go over to my social medias. High Kick underscore Fight Picks is Instagram and TikTok, and there's a Facebook group as well, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. And please feel free to post anything MMA related in there. Post your bets in there. I want to see everybody's stuff. I want everybody to win money, and I want to get ideas off everybody. So please, post your bets in there so I can see them. Um, what else? What else? What else? What fights have we lost on this card? It was originally supposed to be Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen, and we lost Sung Woo Choi versus Morgan Shetty, and Cesar Almeida was originally supposed to fight Josh Fremd, and Jose Johnson was originally supposed to fight Lucas Rocha, and but the Louis Rocha is now taking on Joshua Van, so I feel like that's going to be a better fight than the Jose Johnson one would be. So um, looking forward to that. Yeah, man. Is there anything else I need to talk about before I get started? I don't think so. Let's go. First up, we got Melissa Mullins taking on Nora Cornell. And Mullins is 32 years old. She is 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. She is 6-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. And so they mixed all the fights around. I got to scroll down on my notes here. 1-0 in the UFC. She's a minus 255 favorite, probably even bigger favorite now. Normally I get these out on Wednesday, so I did my notes several days before that. So, um, 3 wins by knockout. She's never won a fight by submission. Undefeated as a pro, but lost 4 fights as an amateur. She beat Alexiva in her debut, but Alexiva isn't a good fighter. I couldn't believe that Alexiva won her debut, against Stephanie Egger. Um, but Mullins does have a win over Zalesniakova, who just got a win last weekend, right? But she was getting outstruck on the feet in that fight with Zelnikova. But then she took Zelnikova down, and either way, she got the finish. Uh, but I did see some holes in her game as far as in her striking, in that matchup. Um, but either way, like I said, she got the finish, and she seems well rounded, and at least that she can get the fight to the ground whenever she wants. So far anyway, has good power on her punches. Needs to work on checking leg kicks. She was busting Alexikova up, or not Alexiva up. Sorry, not Zelnikova. With her jab, she had a good 1-2 in that fight. But she did get dropped by Alexiva, which I don't think Alexia is a very skilled fighter, man. As far as like striking goes, kickboxing, she was just kind of winging big shots, and whatever. But it wasn't a good look to get dropped by Alexiva. Um, but yeah, she is super tough, man, and she's always in the fight. But I do think people are seriously underestimating her opponent a little bit in this fight. Melissa will have a 1 inch reach advantage. She's looked good, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to as high of a price on her in this as it's calling for. I mean, I don't know. It seems like a lot. If she's only her second fight in the UFC and she's only 6-0, to be paying almost minus 300 um, if she gets the fight to the ground, the fight will go her way. And she'll probably be able to. She does have the advantage in the grappling, and she's taking on Nora Cornell. She is 34 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. She is 7-1 and 1-0 in the UFC, and she's a plus 215 underdog. And she has 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission, which is more than Mullins has, at least as far as Mullins doesn't have a win by submission on her record yet. Um, she's never been finished. I was super impressed with her in her debut. She beat a legit UFC veteran. Who had a lot of fights and a lot of wins in the UFC. Um, and y'all know I've got a soft spot for Jocelyn Edwards. I'm a big fan of hers, and it was hard for me to watch. I mean, a lot of people probably felt like Edwards won that fight, but I feel like she was getting takedowns and not really doing any damage at all, which is why the judges gave it to Nora. Um, she has a Muay Thai background. She was a 5-time French champion and European silver medalist. In kickboxing and Muay Thai. Her strength is really what impressed me, and she it seems like she has like legit like man strength, the way she was kind of able to like throw Edwards off of her and stuff like that to get back to her feet. And I don't know, she is pretty big for the weight class. She's a great striking, big power, nasty leg kicks. She's definitely going to be the better striker and have the power advantage in this fight, no doubt. She throws great combinations, very strong in the clinch. She did get taken down, by Edwards a few times in that fight, but she was kind of able just to like reverse position or use her strength to get back up and end up on top. And she also used the fence to get back up, and do damage, which is I kind of thought she didn't really have very much experience, as far as getting back up to her feet, going into that fight. I figured she'd probably just end up on her back the whole time, but she was able to get back up and do some damage. So likes to frame off the face and land those elbows in the clinch. She's good at doing damage while her opponents are constantly trying to take her down. Um, but yeah, man, if Edwards can get her down, I'm pretty sure Mullins probably can. But Cornell has a legit shot, man, at knocking out Mullins in this fight. So it's a scary fight to bet on. I think Cornell will eventually have some success in the UFC, but she's still developing parts of her game, and I probably won't bet on this fight much. Maybe a big parlay I'll put Mullins in. And I'll take her to win by decision. But since she's never been since she's never submitted anyone, I'll definitely go with by decision. But be aware, man, that if Cornell lands a big shot, she could put Mullins out, fairly easily. She's got a very high level striker, so we'll see what happens, man. But I wouldn't be surprised if Nora pulled out an upset here with a big shot. Next up, we got Dylan Budka taking on Cesar Almeida, and Budka is 24 years old. He is 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach, and he is 7-2, and this is going to be his UFC debut. Um, he's a plus 145 underdog. I actually think he's a favorite now. I think the lines have switched. Uh, apologize for being a few days late on this. I know the odds. The closer we get to the fight card, that's why I do my videos early. I want everybody to get better odds on the fights, but yeah, he started out an underdog. I think he's a favorite now, a slight favorite. 1 win by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He went 8-2 as an amateur as well. Never been knocked out, but has been submitted once. Most of the guys he's fought have had little experience. Not any high level experience either. The only guy he fought with a lot of experience was Azamat Bekov, who was 15-3, and he lost that fight by split decision. And other than that, though, the only tough guy he's beaten was his fight on the Contender Series, who was 9-2. He has a wrestling background. Hasn't been a big finisher in the past. In his fight on the Contender Series, he showed great wrestling and takedown defense, but I wasn't like super impressed overall. You can still tell that he's kind of working on some parts of his game. I think he lost the first round on the Contender Series just because his opponent landed more shots. The rest of the fight was just kind of his opponent trying to take him down and not getting him there. I was kind of surprised that he got the contract, after a fight like that. I mean, he did all he could considering that his opponent was just kind of staying on him, trying to take him down the whole time. But, the way Dana is on the Contender Series, he always wants to see more than that. The story of this fight is going to be if he can get, the takedowns. If he can't, he's not gonna if you can't get the fight down, he's not going to do very well. He's not going to win the striking battle on the feet against a high level kickboxer. So, Buka will have a 1 inch reach advantage. It's tough to say how well his skills are going to hold up against UFC level competition. Honestly, the guy he fought on the contender series looked pretty terrible. So, um, even though Almeida doesn't have a whole lot of MMA experience, he is a legit combat sport veteran, kickboxing champion. So he has more experience in that realm. Um, he's taking on Cesar Almeida. He is 36 years old. He is 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He is 4-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he was a minus 170 favorite. And this guy, this guy's claim to fame is he had one win over Alex Pereira in kickboxing, but he lost by decision the other two times that they fought. Before his fight on the Contender Series, he had never fought anybody good in MMA. But like I said, lots of high level kickboxing experience, has over 30 knockouts in kickboxing. Um, I think we were all surprised that he basically just showed that he can wrestle on the Contender Series. He trains at Extreme Couture. His record as a kickboxer was 47, 8-1 as a kickboxer, and he's never been knocked out, which is pretty crazy. Really hard leg kicks. He was a big underdog in his last fight. Everyone thought his opponent would be able to take him down and beat him, and the opposite happened. He was taken down, but he got to the fence, got back up, and he beat his opponent everywhere in that fight. He does load up quite a bit on most of his shots, but he doesn't get tired. He can do it for however many rounds. Um, he showed great head movement, good submission defense, great ground and pound. He's the more technical, powerful striker here, and I expect to see him trying to destroy Budka's calves, with those kicks, which will slow down the takedowns, and he goes to the body a lot with his punches. If he can keep it on the feet, it's his fight all day for sure. But I could also see this fight playing out like his last fight, um, stuffing the takedowns, tiring his opponent out, ended up on top himself. Um, I would I be surprised if Buko went out and dominated it, with his wrestling? No, I would not. But Caesar's takedown defense looked, pretty decent in his last fight. Um, and he's got a crazy advantage on the feet. So I mean, I'm gonna go with Almeida to get the win here by knockout, round two. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, as an underdog, I don't mind the price, especially as plus money. Before with him being like a minus 170. I was a little bit less likely to. I still was going to pick him, but I was less likely to put money on him. Get invested. But as an underdog, I do like the price. So um, definitely be including him in some parlays probably. Next up, we got Gene Matsumoto taking on Dan Argueta, and this is an interesting matchup, man. For me, anyway, I was having a lot of trouble with this, and I was kind of fishing for what people thought in my Facebook group, and nobody answered me. But Masamoto is 24 years old. He was 5'6" with a 68.5-inch reach. He is 14-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a minus 240 favorite. And it's surprising to me that he's this big of a favorite, in this spot, even if he is undefeated. He has 3 wins by knockout and 5 wins by submission. He fought some decent competition on his way to the UFC. At least his last few fights before the UFC, he fought some decent competition. Um, he has black belts in Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu. Apparently, I didn't even know Muay Thai did belts. So, uh, yeah, but a lifelong martial artist. His takedown defenses look questionable at times, but he hasn't lost. So, I mean, what can you say? He's very fast. He switches stances back and forth, sets up his strikes that way, and his kicks. Um, Great footwork, great calf kicks, throws really good combinations. Often finishes his combinations with a low kick. No doubt he has a big advantage in the striking in this fight. Great elbows in the clinch. If he can stuff the takedowns, it's his fight all day. But can he? Because Argueta gets everybody down pretty much. So far. So um, he showed nice double legs in his last fight in the LFA. But he couldn't keep the fight on the ground though when he got it there. Has really nice chokes. Going back 2 fights to his first fight in the LFA. He was taken down by a fighter, that is nowhere near as good of a wrestler as Argueta. Uh, so I mean, it kind of makes me nervous laying a lot of money on Masamoto if if he couldn't stuff that guy taking him down, he's not going to be able to stuff Argueta's takedowns either. So, you know, Matsumoto is heavily favored on Tapology and on the betting line. Um, but we haven't really seen him against legit, UFC level competition. So can he stuff the takedowns? Um, he's taking on Dan Argueta. He is 30 years old. He's 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. He is 9-1 and 1-1 in the UFC, with two no contests actually in the UFC, one of which should have been a win. So his record in the UFC should actually be 2-2, because he lost the Johns fight, and it was ruled a no contest because Johns popped for steroids or something, and he was dominating the Ronnie Lawrence fight, and the ref just stopped it, before he should have, so he didn't get the win. But he was dominating that fight. I'm not super high on his striking, but he does have really good wrestling, good double legs and trip takedowns. Very strong with his body lock, dangerous jujitsu. Sorry, I can't talk. Good scrambles. He will be the bigger, stronger fighter here, muscle wise. 2 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. He's never been finished. He's good at moving back and forth from half guard to mount to set up his chokes. I was very surprised with how quickly and easily he dominated Ronnie Lawrence in that fight. It's tough. This fight, yeah, it's tough to pick, man, because I definitely could see Argueta dominating the fight with his wrestling. He pushes a tough pace. Uh, he does show 48% striking accuracy with 53% striking defense, 50% takedown accuracy with 60% takedown defense, and he averages 2.54 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 2.35 strikes per minute while absorbing 1.90. So he doesn't get hit a lot, but he doesn't land a lot of volume either, mainly because he's always wrestling. Um, I've been going back and forth on this one. I do really like Matsumoto, but I think I'm going to go with Argueta to win this fight by decision. Using his wrestling, um, just because I haven't seen enough, from Matsumoto yet, against high level competition to make me think he's going to be able to stop the takedowns. But he is very good, and he is going to have a lot of success in the UFC, with his striking and his jiu-jitsu. He's very good, both ways. Maybe Argueta gets him down and he submits Argueta. I don't know, but um, I'm gonna take the underdog and go with Dan Argueta to win by decision. Basically, win on control time. Next up, we got Cynthia Calvillo taking on Para Rodriguez. Um, had to take a break there and adjust my volume. I think it was down too low. Sorry about that. Um, Cynthia Calvillo is 36 years old, 5'4" with a 64-inch reach. She is 9-6-1 and 6-6-1 in the UFC, um, and a plus 175 underdog. 2 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. She's never been submitted, but has been knocked out a few times. So basically, her whole pro career has been in the UFC. Even her few fights before the UFC were against people who ended up being in the UFC. Later on. She has lost 5 in a row, but her last two losses were by split decision, close fights. I don't expect this to make sense to anyone, but I think that Calvillo going to a split decision in her last fight with Lupita Godinez is more impressive than Rodriguez getting submitted by Gillian Robertson last time out. Um, I don't know if anybody agrees with me on that, but Calvillo has fought the way tougher competition. Um, and Rodriguez, I mean, Rodriguez's wins in the UFC, have been over, two of the lower level fighters that the UFC has to offer. Sam Hughes and Kay Hansen, I think. Calvillo has a half-inch reach advantage. He's a good striker. She took Godinez down in that fight as well. That was her first fight back down at 115 pounds, and it seemed like she was having a little trouble getting used to the speed of Godinez at first. But she made the adjustments and came out in the second round and started using her kicks and her side kicks and front kicks to kind of disrupt Godinez's, rhythm, and was using her jab very well. But going back and watching the fight, I thought Godinez clearly won two of the rounds. Um, Calvillo did look, quite slow on the feet, but she was able to have success, in the fight with her takedowns and kind of picking up the pace with her jab. Um, Robertson Robertson was able to to get Rodriguez down and dominate her fairly easily in that fight. Um, but and I don't know that Calvillo's wrestling is as good as Robertson's, but I mean, I feel like she's a legit veteran and has a good shot at getting the takedowns anyway. Um, she was Calvillo was busting up Godinez with her jab in the third round, and may have won the third round. The first round was pretty close, but I thought Godinez edged it out. Uh, but Calvillo shows 38% striking accuracy with 64% striking defense, 44% takedown accuracy with 78% takedown defense, and she averages 1.80 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands on average 4.41 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.12. So pretty close to the same on the getting hit and landing shots. Could be better there. She's taking on Para Rodriguez. She is 31 years old. She's 5'3" with a 63.5-inch reach. She is 9-1 and 2-1 in the UFC. She's a minus 215 favorite. 5 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. And she hasn't been knocked out, but she was submitted once in her last fight. Um, she's one of those who had a lot of finishes before the Contender Series, but um, since she got to the UFC and the Contender Series, all her wins have been by decision. Nice striking, throws a lot of calf kicks, goes to the body a lot, uses good feints to set up her strikes. Nice jab. In the striking here, I don't think Rodriguez is quite, as fast as Godinez was that Calvillo fought in her last fight. And Calvillo was able to keep up with Godinez pretty close, in the last two rounds. But Rodriguez doesn't throw as much volume as Calvillo dealt with in her last fight, so it could be a little bit closer on the feet. I think Rodriguez has the power advantage, though, for sure. Rodriguez has decent takedowns, good single legs. I don't think she'll be able to get Calvillo down, though. But Rodriguez does, she struggles to keep her opponents down. Like, when she fought Sam Hughes, she kept popping back up, and it was a close fight, with Sam Hughes, which is not a very good look. Rodriguez is strong with her tie clinch, good knees in close, nice combinations. She shows 47% striking accuracy with 57% striking defense, 41% takedown accuracy with 67% takedown defense. She averages 3.31 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands on average 3.46 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.98. I think this could be a close fight. I won't be betting on this fight at all. If I were, I would probably take the dog. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Rodriguez is quite worth the big price, even if Calvillo is on a bad losing streak. Calvillo has fought all the tough fights in two weight classes, so I mean, who's to say she couldn't win this fight? And no, I wouldn't be surprised either if Rodriguez won. Because she's, the younger, prospect or whatever. Everybody's and the big favorite, But I think I'm gonna, take Calvillo to win by decision. Um, yeah, I'm gonna take Calvillo to win by decision. Will I bet on it? Probably not. I won't include this one in anything because I'm not confident at all in that. I just feel like she's a tougher veteran and has fought the tougher competition. So I mean, she's got a good shot. Next up, we got alatenghili taking on Victor Hugo. Find this fight on my notes real quick. There it is. Um, Alatenghili is 32 years old. He's 5'5" with a 66.5-inch reach. He is 16, 9, and 2, and 4, 2, and 1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 120 underdog. Um, I don't think he is a plus 120 underdog anymore. I think the fight's closer than that. I meant to change that because I ended up getting better odds on this fight. I think it's like minus. I think Otang Haley is like minus 105, and Victor Hugo is minus 108 um, right now. uh, Almeida Haley has 5 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. This guy's super tough, man. His best wins have been over Bagdurel Dana in his debut and Chad Ellinger. He went to a draw with Gustavo Lopez, who I don't consider to be very good. So not a good look there. But he hasn't been finished in the UFC, but has been earlier on in his career. All around a pretty good powerful striker. Pretty short and stocky for the weight class. His last fight, he struggled with the footwork and leg kicks of Chris Gutierrez. Just kind of got outclassed in that fight. But he does have good kickboxing. He has the UFC experience. He's fought the tougher competition. Has the better wins. Does his best work when he's backing his opponents up and controlling the center of the octagon. His takedown defense has been pretty good thus far in the UFC. Tends to just like to kickbox in his fights. Doesn't really push the wrestling very much. Even when he should. A lot of the time. He shows 33% striking accuracy with 58% striking defense. 41% takedown accuracy with 73% takedown defense. Averages 1.82 takedowns per 15 minutes and lands on average 2.88 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.03, which are pretty terrible numbers both ways there. Seems like he misses a lot of shots, not very accurate, and he gets hit too much. Um, he's taking on Victor Hugo, and Hugo is 31 years old. He is 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, 24-4, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a minus 108 right now, or he was as far as yesterday. 8 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. It's a good ratio, man. Good there on the wins, and shows how well rounded he is. Just by looking at it, you can tell. He's on a 13 fight win streak right now. Hasn't been finished and or lost since 2014. He's fought. He's fought some pretty tough competition. Tougher than most of the guys coming into the UFC from the Contender Series. Most of the guys, have fought. He's fought guys with records like 19-3 and 16-1. I mean, pretty decent competition for not being in the UFC. He's gonna have a 4.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. He beat a really tough guy in his last fight. He has a big advantage in the jiu-jitsu and takedowns in this fight. Very big. Uh, well, I wouldn't say very big, but he's definitely bigger and longer than alatenghili anyway. Big power. Very dangerous with his leg submissions. Great single legs. Very strong with his body lock. Great trips. All his strikes are at full force. Throws a lot of spinning attacks. Very fast and explosive. Can be a little wild at times. Alatenghili may be the more technical striker, but Hugo has the power advantage. But I do expect him to come out here and use his grappling, man, and probably get a submission victory. I'm gonna go with submission round two because I don't understand. Maybe other people have saw something I didn't, but you know there's a lot of money coming in on Alatenghili, man, and I just don't understand why. But I'm happy to get a better price on Victor Hugo. So I mean, but if anybody knows what's up with that, let me know. But I feel like Hugo's got this fight in the bag, man. Next up, we got Norma Dumont taking on Jermaine Durandamy. I'll find this fight. There it is. Um, Dumont is 33 years old. She's 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. She is 10-2 and 6-2 in the UFC. She's a minus 195 favorite. Um, Never won a fight by knockout. 2 wins by submission. She hasn't had a finish yet in the UFC at all. To me, like, if the UFC still had a featherweight division, I consider Dumont to be like the uncrowned champion of that. She's well rounded. Even though she hasn't gotten a knockout yet, we have seen her hurt her opponents. With her strikes, kind of like she did to Chelsea Chandler when Chelsea Chandler took off running across the cage. Uh, and she looks better and better every time we see her. Great takedowns, great boxing. I don't understand this matchup honestly because she's fighting someone here who hasn't fought in like 3 or 4 years. So I mean, I know Jermaine was like at the top of the division, those years many years ago, but hasn't fought in so long. So I'm surprised they're giving giving her a fight with Dumont, who's been pretty active and on a pretty good run right now. So um, where was I at? Great takedowns, great boxing. Like I said, but I guess Jermaine, was kind of a badass before, when she was in the UFC. I just didn't think she was coming back, to be honest with you. Dumont's going to want to get this fight to the ground. She probably has the advantage there for sure. Dumont shows 50% striking accuracy with 67% striking defense, 65% takedown accuracy with 72% takedown defense. She averages 1.39 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands on average 3.41 strikes per minute while absorbing 1.99. So, not the most volume, but doesn't get hit very much, which is, it's good for her, man. And she's taking on Jermaine Durandamy. She is 39 years old, coming up on 40 years old. 5'9" with a 72.5-inch reach. She is 10-4 and 7-2 in the UFC, and she's a plus 165 underdog. Four wins by knockout, one win by submission. I mean, she's only lost to Amanda Nunes in the UFC. You know, I mean, twice. So she has a win over the current champ as well, man. So I mean, she beat Raquel Pennington, some years ago. She has a kickboxing and Muay Thai background, even some boxing matches, on her record. Obviously, a world class striker, man. She's taller. She's gonna have a 5.5 inch reach advantage. I mean, she did submit Juliana Pena in her last fight in the UFC. She's a former champion, won the title off Holly Holm. She stayed on her toes in her last fight, popping the jab. Show she throws great up. Sorry, I cannot talk today. She throws great uppercuts, very strong in the clinch, very fast and technical striking, great counter striking. She was the number one contender at the time of her last fight, man, and the more I think about this, the more I kind of want to pick Jermaine, to win this fight. But it all comes down to what has she been doing this whole time she's been out. I know she had an injury back in 2021, but has she been training the last few years, working on her ground game? We don't know. No doubt she's the better striker for sure, and has the power advantage. But if she can keep it on the feet, it's probably her fight. But and she could become a champion again real quick if she does. I mean, because she's already beat Raquel Pennington once before, who's to say she couldn't do it again. She shows 47% striking accuracy with 66% striking defense. Pretty good defense. Never landed or tried, to land a takedown in the UFC. Um, 70% takedown defense, and she lands on average 2.72 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.14. So not the most volume there either. Honestly, if Jermaine hadn't been out this long, I probably would pick her to win this fight. But I'm going to be going with Dumont to win this fight by decision. But I'm kind of rooting for Jermaine to win this fight. Honestly, it'd be cool to see her come back and get a win and work her way into a title shot. At 40 years old. So um, anyway, next up we got Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Christos Gia- Giagos. Um, and Bahamondes is 26 years old. He is 6'3" with a 75.5 inch reach. He is 14-5 and 3-2 in UFC, and he's a minus 290 favorite. 9 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. He's never been knocked out, but has been submitted twice. And I'm a big fan of this guy's, man. He's super tall and rangy for the weight class. He's going to have a 4 inch reach advantage in this fight. Great kickboxing, good at fighting long and using his reach. He's a young guy, still developing, and I think his last fight, his loss to Ludovic Klein probably will do him some good, man. It showed him, what areas he needed to work on, and I expect to see him come back better than ever. Ignacio has one of the coolest spinning wheel kick knockouts we've ever seen in the UFC on his record, over Roosevelt Roberts, which is a tough guy. Even if he hasn't made it in done well in the UFC recently, Roberts is a very tough guy, man. Um, Throws a wide variety of strikes and kicks. Great inside and outside leg kicks. Nice check hooks. Throws a lot of teep kicks. Lots of volume, man, and does his best work when he's pressure, kind of pressure punching and pushing forward, guys, and keeping them back up against the cage. Great knees and elbows in the clinch, and also he's good at landing those when guys are shooting on him, and he fights well from both stances. He switches back and forth a lot. He's definitely got the advantage in the striking in this matchup. I could see Giagos having success early in this fight. Giagos is always dangerous in the first round. He does have big power. Um, but I could even see Giagos getting, an early takedown as well. But I do think Ignacio has the better cardio, and I think he'll eventually start, taking over the fight the longer the fight goes if it gets out of the first round. He shows 46% striking accuracy with 57% striking defense. Never landed a takedown in the UFC, but has 85% takedown defense. He lands on average 6.97 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.36. And I like how he kind of beats up all levels, the body, legs, body, head. And he does a lot. He lands a lot of volume, a lot of body shots, a lot of body kicks, a lot of leg kicks. Um, Kind of overwhelms guys, as the fight goes on. And he's taking on Christos Giagos. He is 34 years old. He's 5'10" with a 71.5 inch reach. He is 20-11 and 6-7 in the UFC. He's a plus 250 underdog. 8 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. Key thing about him is, he's been submitted 6 times. But Ignacio is a kickboxer. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised though after Bahamondes' last fight that he's been working hard on his submissions and his chokes. I'm sure he has after being taken down so many times. But either way, Giagos is a big, powerful guy. He's always dangerous early. May have an edge with his wrestling in this fight, but does tend to start strong and slow down as the fight goes on. His weak parts of his game have always been submission awareness and defense. He has been competing in a lot of grappling tournaments, working on that part of his game though. I guess his best win would be his knockout of Ricky Glenn. Other than that, not a lot of impressive victories in the UFC. And I mean, I don't know. I've never really thought that highly of Ricky Glenn, but Ricky Glenn has some decent performances on his record. So, um, like I said, it's possible that Giagos lands a big shot early, but Ignacio is hard to put away, man. No one has yet. I do think that Giagos will slow down and Ignacio is going to outstrike him on the feet. Um, or I could possibly see, Giago shooting a bad takedown and Ignacio getting a choke with those long arms. But Ignacio shows, or sorry, Giago shows, my bad, 42% striking accuracy with 52% striking defense, 37% takedown accuracy with 52% takedown defense. He averages 2.93 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 2.98 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.95. So basically the same amount absorbed as landed there, which isn't good. Not very high volume at all compared to Ignacio. I got Ignacio to win this fight. I think he's going to win by late TKO round. Let's say round three, and 94% of everybody's going with Bahamondes on Tapology as well. So next up, we got Court McGee taking on Alex Morono. Find this fight. Just gonna start doing the fights in the order on my that I do my notes. uh, Here we go. So Court McGee is 39 years old, 5'11 with a 75.5-inch reach. He is 21-12 and 10-11 in the UFC. He's a plus 250 underdog. He has 3 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out a few times. He's been in the UFC since 2010. He has wins over Brad Tavares and Robert Whitaker early on in his career. He's only won 3 fights in the last 6 years, but up until his last 2 fights, they were all decision losses. Wasn't like he was out there getting destroyed. I've always kind of found myself rooting for him to win fights because of his background, and his story. And I believe he used to be an addict, and I used to be an addict as well. So I always kind of find myself, rooting for him back in the day. Most of the guys that have beaten him have been all tough guys. I mean, um, he lost to Carlos Condit, Jeremiah Wells, Matt Brown. Um, he does have decent wrestling, good submissions, and even though he hasn't had a finish in the UFC since 2010, he does have good submissions, so he could land a submission here. He's never been a big knockout puncher, but he does have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. He really likes to hang on to you and wear you down and look for the clinch and the takedowns. His cardio is one of his best weapons. His last 2 wins, he kind of outlasted his opponents and used his wrestling. If he can get the takedowns in this fight, he may win, but he's not going to win on the feet against Morono. McGee shows 37% striking accuracy with 61% striking defense, 26% takedown accuracy. You would think that would be higher. Maybe his wrestling's not as good as I said, but and he's got 70% takedown defense, and he averages just under 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 4.63 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.68. He's taking on Alex Morono. He is 33 years old, 5'11 with a 72-inch reach. He is 23-9 and 12-6 in the UFC, and he's a minus 310 favorite. 6 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out a few times. It's crazy he's been around since 2016 himself. He has some nice wins on his record, like Max Griffin and Matthew Semmelsberger, Tim Means. He's well rounded. Has kind of an awkward style of striking, but it's very effective. We saw that in the Semmelsberger fight. He was beating up Ponzinibbio that whole fight before he got caught with that overhand right in the last round. Holds his hands up real high and wide. Kind kind of loops over shots, from weird angles. Good at ducking in and out of the pocket. He'll throw the right hand and then he gets off the center line and he'll throw like his left hook kind of leaning out of the pocket. It's kind of a tricky setup, man. Um, he is the better striker here for sure, the more powerful striker. Uh, Dangerous submissions, great guillotine chokes. And he'll usually use the guillotine to defend takedowns and get guys to back up off of him. Has pretty good takedown defense. He was taken down by Buckley, but it was the explosiveness of Buckley that was getting him. Those takedowns um, that Buckley was shooting. I don't think McGee has that kind of explosiveness. Like Buckley does. Um, Morono shows 42% striking accuracy with 58% striking defense, 23% takedown accuracy with 70% takedown defense, or sorry, 50% takedown defense. My bad. Um, which isn't a good number either. Maybe McGee can get him down, but I guess his takedown defense isn't as good as I thought. Uh, Seems like it's been a while since we've seen him taken down, though. I mean, like I said, Buckley got him down, but I don't know. Either way, he doesn't shoot very often himself, and he lands on average basically 5 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.17. I'm taking Morono to win this fight. I think he either gets a late knockout or sinks in a guillotine choke when McGee shoots on him. Um, I think either way, man, fight probably ends in round two. Next up, we got Trevor Peek taking on Charlie Campbell. This should be a fun fight while it lasts, man. Pretty good matchmaking. And yeah, Trevor Peek is 29 years old. He is 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. He is 9-1 and 2-1 in the UFC. It was a minus 125 favorite. I think the lines have shifted more towards Campbell. Um, but yeah, they had the odds on this only on Bovada at the time of me doing my notes, and it's been kind of hard to track it down. I think for whatever reason they keep taking it on and off the books. I don't know why. Um, they were crossed out on Bovada, but um, either way, man, Peek's got 8 wins by knockout. All but one of his wins have all but one of his wins have been by knockout. He's never won a fight by submission, and he's never been finished. He's one of the most exciting fighters to watch because of how wild he fights. We did see him actually calm down and in his last fight and try and fight smart, and use his wrestling, and he did a pretty good job, man. Not what we expected, but he won the fight, and he throws everything at full force, insane pace that will tire him out if he doesn't get the finish. The thing is, he's gotten most of his wins with just his raw power and not really his skills, because of the way he's always fought in the past. I think he's still developing in a lot of areas with his ground game and his takedown defense, and even his technique in the striking. Because before he just kind of put his head down and nonstop swung till he knocked guys out, and that's what got him here. Now he has to put the skills together, and it'll be interesting to see how much he's improved, since his last fight. He's taking on Charlie Campbell. He is 28 years old. He is 6 foot tall with a 72.5-inch reach. He is 8-2 and 1-0 in the UFC. And he was a plus 105 underdog um, at the start of this. I think I kind of missed out on. I think I got him at a favorite price. He's pretty tall for the weight class. He's gonna have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. 6 wins by knockout. Never won or lost a fight by submission. He was knocked out by Chris Duncan on the Contender Series, his first time. I don't know. I guess He didn't come back to the Contender Series. He just got his shot in the UFC on short notice. Yeah, but he won a fight by knockout after the Chris Duncan fight, and then they gave him a shot in the UFC where he knocked out Alex Reyes as well. But to be fair, Reyes hadn't fought in like 5 years, so I mean, I don't know. Is it that good of a win? I don't know, but I was impressed with the way he looked in that fight. But Charlie also had 2 wins in Bellator. Don't understand why they didn't keep him on there. Because both those wins were by finish. You would think they would have wanted him in Bellator and paid whatever they had to do, but um, he's going to be the much bigger fighter here. He showed some nice striking in his debut, very technically sound, good calf kicks. Lots of real nice spinning attacks as well. Good takedown defense. He stayed nice and calm and didn't rush it. Just let the finish come to him in his last fight, which is a lot better because in the past he used to kind of rush things and get caught. He was very accurate, man. In his last fight, and I really liked what I saw there. And in this fight, Peak won't want to have like a technical battle on the feet with Campbell. I don't think, because Campbell's got the reach, and I think he's probably the way better striker as far as you know um the technical striking. Peak probably should go back to that crazy way he fought before, or look for takedowns on Campbell. Peak only wins in the striking if he can draw Campbell into a brawl. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to be going with Charlie Campbell to get the win here. I'm gonna take it and win by decision just because Peak is really hard to put away. Keeps coming no matter what. Probably could be fight of the night though as well. So looking forward to this one. Next up, we got Lucas Brzeski taking on Walter Walker, and Brzeski is 31 years old, 6'4" with a 78 inch reach. Let's just call it that. 8-4-1 and 0-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 300 underdog. I always kind of wanted to see Brzeski win a fight. I thought he won his debut against Martin Bidet, but since he's looked really terrible, man, and he's got horrible takedown defense, got knocked out by Acosta. So really, this kind of comes down to how good this new guy is. But I'm pretty sure that I'm done putting faith in Brzeski after the way he's looked in his last two fights. And he's taking on Walter Walker. He is 26 years old, 6'6" with an 81.1-inch reach, and he's 11-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut. Minus 400 favorite. This is Johnny Walker's brother, supposedly. I don't know. I don't know how it works or what kind of relationship they have, or because he has the Russian flag up a lot of the time. When he fights, and as well as the Brazilian flag, but he kind of looks Russian. Like he'd be a Russian guy. He's huge. He's 2 inches taller and has 3 inches of reach advantage. I think I saw Bogdan Guskov in his corner on one of his fights that I watched. He has good takedowns for heavyweight, moves well for a big guy, 6 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Big power, good striking. Has a big advantage with his grappling in this fight for sure. His last fight, he got the win in the fourth round, so the cardio's there. Nice hands and combinations, and I think he wins this fight pretty easily. And I think the fight after this to make would be him versus Despain, the big Taekwondo guy that beat Josh Parisian a few weeks ago. I think that'd be a good match to make. And next up, we got Joshua Van taking on Lucas Roca. Joshua Van is 22 years old. He is 5'5" with a 65-inch reach, and he is 10-1 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 350 favorite. Um, Van, being this big of a favorite against a guy who's 17-1 is pretty crazy. Van has a 1 inch reach advantage. Uh, he's got amazing boxing, great combinations, very fast, uses his jab very well. Great cardio, great pace and pressure. 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. And his only loss was by submission. He's never been knocked out. He's looked great, man. It hasn't all been perfect. We saw him get caught by Kevin Borjas in the first round and come back and dominate the fight and get the win. He mixes up his attacks very well, goes to the body a lot, great calf kicks as well. I like that he typically throws long combinations instead of one shot at a time. Really dangerous in the pocket. Throws a lot of volume once he gets going. He's hard to deal with, man, once he gets going, and he doesn't stop coming forward. Likes to double and triple up the jab. Um, I've always thought Van was kind of small for the weight class, but Roko's even smaller. So as far as height goes, anyway, Van looked great, but in his last two fights, in his last two fights, but you know they've all of his fights have been against guys making their UFC debuts. So even though Roka has a great record, he doesn't have any UFC level experience. So I mean, his takedown defense has held up pretty well in his last two fights. No one's been able to keep him down. He's on an 8 fight win streak. Kind of has slow starts at times. It takes him a round to kind of figure out the timing and get going. Nasty elbows with his ground and pound, and I also think I also think his last two opponents kind of gassed out after the first round too, which led to him really taking over and putting on a very dominant performance. Buenas was having a lot of success against Van with the kicks and long range shots. Being the bigger, taller fighter. So I'm curious how Van will do when he faces someone with good cardio and those same advantages. But either way, Van shows 53% striking accuracy with 60% striking defense. 43% takedown accuracy with 79% takedown defense. And it says he averages one takedown per 15 minutes. I don't know if I guess maybe he landed a few so far in the UFC. Hasn't had that many fights though, and he lands on average 9.8 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.77. So he does get hit way too much, but of lands a whole lot of shots, man. Very impressive number there. He's taking on Lucas Roca. He is 23 years old, 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. He is 17-1, and this is UFC debut. Uh, Plus 285 underdog, 10 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. Most of his wins have been by finish, and his one loss was by knockout, and it was back in 2019. One thing I noticed right off the bat is he has some opponents with decent records that he's beaten. Uh, you know, like I was saying earlier, usually these guys coming in off the contender series have fought terrible competition all the way through. And then the first fight they have with someone decent is on the contender series, but this guy has some nice wins. He's on a 6-fight win streak. And he fought up a weight class on the contender series as well, so that makes it even more impressive of a win. I like how he carried over his finishing streak to the contender series. It's often guys will have all these finishes and then on their record, and then it all stops whenever they get to the UFC and contender series. Um, he's one of the highest ranked flyweights and bantamweights on the Brazil regional scene. He did miss weight the first time on the contender series, so the fight was moved up to bantamweight. But he has fought as low as 115 pounds before in his career, and I'm sure him and his team have got his weight down, on point now that he's in the UFC. I'm not gonna lie, I think he's the more well-rounded fighter out of these two, just because Lucas will attack more submissions than Van will. They both are primarily known for their striking. Roca in his last fight, he defended well against a better grappler and kept him off of his back and kept getting back up. When the guy would get him down. His opponent wasn't trying to give him a chance to get going on the feet, and kind of tired himself out trying to get Roca down. Um, he's great at timing those knees when guys are shooting on him. I went back and watched his last fight that went to decision, and and he was able to, the cardio seemed on point. I have seen him taken down on tape, quite a few times, but he's never been submitted. Like I said, throws a wider variety of strikes than Van. Great cardio, nice combinations himself. This will be a very fun fight, man. And I think Van is the more polished striker, more technical, but Roca has kind of like an offbeat style. He's so used to people constantly shooting on him that he looks kind of sloppy at times, but he does stay on guys and try to get a finish the entire fight. He's always there. He's pretty small for the weight class, but um, I have seen him hurt a few times, by much worse fighters than Van. So I would almost feel better about taking the dog at these prices, but I do think Van has the more technical, cleaner striking, and Van tends to overwhelm his opponents with volume rather than land a big shot. So I'm going to go with Van to win by decision, but I think Roka's going to have some good success in the UFC at some point. Next up, we got uh, Morgan Charriere taking on Chepe Mariscal. And Charriere is 28 years old. He is 5'8" with 69-inch reach. He is 19-9-1 and 1-0 in the UFC. And this fight was even at the time. I think me doing my notes, but I think it's Chepe's a slight underdog now. Um, Morgan Charriere is minus 120. 11 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He's only been finished once, and it was by submission. He is well rounded, even though most of his wins have been by knockout. Great kickboxing, great counter striking, nasty kicks to the body, nice 1-2 down the middle. Good in and out movement, good head movement. Really defensively sound. But we've yet to see him, fight UFC level competition. Going back to his last loss against Paul Hughes, he had a great first 2 rounds, and then he got hit with a good shot in the third round, and it was like the whole momentum of the fight changed. That was in Cage Warriors. And he got taken down, gave up his back trying to get up, and lost the last 3 rounds of the fight. And Yeah, but I mean, he has held gold in Cage Warriors, went 6-3 in Cage Warriors. Not all, but some of his losses have had to do with his takedown defense. So I mean, that's something to think about in this fight. Um, Great power on all his shots. Doesn't get super wild, takes his time and finds the openings. Mixes up his attacks very well. Legs, body, head. Um, it's interesting that on the betting line, Cherie's a favorite. I think there's been a lot of money coming on him, but Chepe Mariscal is a favorite on Tapology. Um, he's taking on Chepe Mariscal. He is 31 years old. He is 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Both these guys have the same reach. 15-6 and 2-0 in the UFC. And like I said, I think he's a slight underdog now. 7 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Has never been submitted, but has been knocked out 3 times. And yeah, he has legit wins over guys that have won fights in the UFC. So I mean, so far in the promotion, but I mean, what most people don't realize is this guy, has had like a lot of tough fights. Guys who went on to be in the UFC before. On the regional scene, he fought Sean Soriano, Steve Garcia, Joe Anderson Brito. He has a win over Yusuf Zalal in the LFA, which is impressive considering that Zalal just beat Billy Quarantillo. He has a win over Pat Sabatini. He also fought Bryce Mitchell, Gregor Gillespie. He also had a long amateur career where he went 11-0. So I mean, there's no questioning who's fought the tougher competition here. Chepe is good everywhere. Great wrestling, grappling, big power in his hands. If you have any holes in your game, he can take advantage of that. We saw that. When he beat Trevor Peek everywhere in that fight. And although the Jack Jenkins fight was stopped, because of an injury, Chepe was winning that round up to that point. Um, Great counter striking, great judo throws and trip takedowns. Fights well in the clinch. Doesn't get tired. Peak threw everything at him, and he stayed calm and just and defended and avoided the big shots and was landing great counters and also that fight was up a weight class on short notice, so it's a really impressive win. I think he has a big advantage with the grappling in this fight. The striking could be pretty close. I really think he could use those same kind of over under trips that he used against Trevor Peek in this fight. He throws nasty elbows up against the cage, strong body lock. I like Chepe's defense when it comes to blocking punches. He has a really nice question mark kick as well. Um, I think he had a question mark kick knockout over man, the guy's last name was Beltron. I can't remember what his first name was. I think it was in the LFA. But this is good matchmaking, man. A good fight. I'm going to be going with Chepe to win this fight by decision. Price is good either way you go, though. But I think Chepe's going to edge him out here, maybe with the wrestling and takedowns. Next up, we got the co-main events: Alex Hernandez versus Damon Jackson. There are so much better fights on here that could be the co-main event. I hope that's not. I don't know. Maybe it is. It was. That's not it. Before it had Norma Dumont and Durandamy as the co-main event uh, beforehand. So I guess they switched it around. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this isn't that big of a fight to me for this to be the co-main event. You know what I mean? uh, Alex Hernandez is 31 years old. He's 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. He is 14-7 and 6-6 in the UFC, and he's a minus 165 favorite. 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He's a tough guy, man. He's been struggling to find, which weight class to call home because he hasn't won a fight down at featherweight yet, but he keeps going back down. He went back up to 155 and beat Jim Miller, though, but then he lost to Bill Algeo, at 145 after that. He has big power, good striking. We saw that in his debut where he knocked out Beneil Dariush. But since then, not a lot of really high caliber wins. He's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage in this fight. He's pretty big for the weight class. This could be a very close fight, man. Hernandez has great kicks. He has that advantage in this matchup because Jackson doesn't really throw a lot of kicks or doesn't have a wide variety of kicks. Probably has a power advantage. May have the better striking, but it's probably close, man. And it really comes down to can he stuff the takedowns from Jackson and will his cardio hold up because Jackson keeps coming at you the entire fight. I'm honestly not sure if I agree with everyone going with Hernandez here. Um, Hernandez shows 42% striking accuracy with 56% striking defense, 31% takedown accuracy with 60% takedown defense. That's a key number there, 60% takedown defense. He averages 1.20 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 4.63 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.90. And he's taking on Damon Jackson. He is 35 years old, 5'11 with a 71-inch reach, 22 6-1, and 5-4-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 135 underdog. 4 wins by knockout, 15 wins by submission. Jackson's biggest skill is his wrestling, his pressure, and his pace and cardio. He keeps coming no matter what, dangerous submissions, and I think this fight goes one to two ways. Either Hernandez wins by quick knockout or Jackson wears on him and pressures him and gets a lot of control time. Um, or a submission on a gassed out Hernandez, late in the fight. Now, Hernandez in the striking, Hernandez is Hernandez probably the better striker, but Jackson throws more volume and kind of pressure strikes guys to get into the clinch where he can work his takedowns and work his wrestling. Um, Being that Hernandez hasn't exactly looked good at all in this weight class, I think I'm going to go with Damon Jackson to win as underdog here. I think Jackson maybe will wear on Hernandez and get the takedowns, and Jackson has gotten takedowns in almost every fight, so I like his odds here, and um, I'll take Jackson to win by man. I think I was gonna go with by submission, like third round submission. Uh, I'll take him to win by third round submission, rear naked choke. Next up, we got the main event. Um, Brendan Allen taking on Chris Curtis for the second time. It's an interesting matchup, anyway, because Curtis has kind of been on a bad run. I know he won his last fight, but it was pretty close. Um, Brendan Allen is 28 years old. He is 6'2 with a 75-inch reach, 23-5 and 11-2 in the UFC. He's a minus 200 favorite. 5 wins by knockout, 14 wins by submission. Allen's last loss was to Chris Curtis by knockout, so you got to think about that. Brendan's, striking has gotten a lot better since then. He has great grappling and submissions, great takedowns, but I'm not gonna lie, looking at who Allen's beat since he fought Chris Curtis, it's not all that impressive. I mean, uh, and a lot of people thought he lost the Malkoon fight. I thought he lost the Malkoon fight. Kind of looks like other than that, he beat a bunch of guys with a crappy takedown defense. I think Andre Muniz I thought Muniz was a decent win at the time, but then Muniz lost to Paul Craig. So I mean, uh, Muniz looked terrible in those two fights, but um, Allen's taller, man, but he doesn't have a reach advantage. He has nice striking, but he doesn't hit hard enough to put Chris Curtis away. Um, he will want to get Chris Curtis down, and there hasn't been that many people that could do that yet. Going back and watching Allen's last two losses, I just wanted to see, what contributed to that. Was he too confident in the striking, or was it that when he went for the takedowns, he either couldn't get them, or Curtis popped right back up, so he stopped shooting. In the Strickland fight, I feel like Sean Strickland grabbing a hold of Allen and showing him how strong he was in the clinch made Allen not pursue the takedowns. Um, Curtis being the shorter guy, lower to the ground, makes it more difficult for Allen to get in on the hips. Um, Allen was doing a good job the last time they fought at using his kicks to beat Curtis up from the outside. Since they fought the only person that Allen has fought with that kind of, I don't think he's really fought anybody with the kind of power of Chris Curtis. I guess, yeah, he fought Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva's got big power, but I think we all knew that he would get the takedown on Bruno Silva and easily win that fight. You know, um, uh, but Allen has won his last four fights with rear naked chokes. He could win this fight, but if he can't get the takedowns and uses grappling, he'll probably get caught on the feet again. So I don't think anybody thought Allen was going to lose to Paul Craig, so I don't really find that, or Silva or Bruno Silva. I mean, I don't really find those wins that impressive. But he has looked great, man, either way, and he shows 54% striking accuracy with 47% striking defense, 54% takedown accuracy with 59% takedown defense. He averages 1.36 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 3.87 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.60. He's taking on Chris Curtis. He is 36 years old, 5'10 with a 75.5-inch reach. He is 31-10 and 5-2 or 32. Sorry, 31-10-1 and 5-2-1 in the UFC. He's a plus 170 underdog. 15 wins by knockout and 3 wins by submission. Great boxing. Likes to step back and counter strike a lot of the time. Doesn't throw the most volume, but his punches hurt. He hurts guys whenever he lands. He's gonna have a half-inch reach advantage. Probably not much there. Looks to dig hooks to the body a lot. He was doing that well the last time these guys fought. Curtis and his camp are 2-0 over Allen, so I mean, they're going to be confident coming into this fight. He has great defense in his striking, throws his jab very well, nasty combinations in the pocket, great uppercuts. He's the better boxer here for sure. He has the power advantage. This fight is going to come down to if Allen can get the takedowns. And whenever they fought the last time, Curtis was on a good run. And he was new to the UFC, but I feel like we've seen examples of ways to beat Chris Curtis now. At this point in his career. Um, we saw Imavov get low and use the body lock to get Curtis down in that fight. I'm sure Allen will try and take advantage of that, himself. But and he may get caught on his way in. It's completely possible. But Curtis shows 51% striking accuracy with 53% striking defense. He doesn't shoot takedowns, but he has 92% takedown defense, which could come into play here, man. And he lands on average 5.96 strikes per minute while absorbing 6.58. So does get hit a whole lot. I want Curtis to win this fight. I'd rather see him win this fight. This is a 5-round fight, and I'm not sure who that's going to benefit more. I think the smart pick is Allen to win by decision. Curtis hasn't been submitted in a very long time. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to take Allen to win by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if Curtis got the knockout again. I'll probably have a little something on Curtis somehow in some way, maybe an underdog parlay or whatever in case he gets the knockout again. But I'm going to go with Allen. I think he's on a good run right now, and I think he's going to, come out with the victory somehow here. And that's all my picks for the fights, guys. And as far as my bets go, pull these up. So I had a play on Charlie Campbell at minus 160, and it was a 1 unit play. I have a play on Victor Hugo at minus 108. That's a 1 unit play. Small play on Chepe Mariscal at plus 143. It's just 120 bucks. And then I have a 3 fight parlay that's Walker, Morono, and Van. That's plus 107. The odds probably aren't as good as they were whenever I put that in now. It might not be at plus money anymore, but that's a half-unit play. As far as parlays go, once again, a lot of the I had to do my parlays on Bet Online, so I had to write them out because I can't screenshot them all the fighters and the parlay at once the way they have their things set up. But yeah, first off, I've got a 4 fight parlay, which is Morono, Walker, Campbell, and Hugo. That's plus 331. And for whatever reason, they didn't have the Joshua Fan fight on there. Otherwise, I would have him on that top line as well. And then to that, I added Ignacio Bahamondes and Chepe Mariscal. That's plus 1,271. And then I added Almeida to that, and that's plus 2,779. And then to that, I added Mullins and Jackson, and that's plus 10,107. A lot of dog plays, on this card. Like the plus money on them. Wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised on those either way, because I mean, Mariscal's fighting a tough guy. Almeida's fighting a good wrestler. Jackson's fighting Alex Hernandez. I feel pretty confident in David Jackson out cardio and Alex Hernandez though, but I could be wrong. So either way, man, that's all my bets, my parlays. Um, yeah, I know everybody says to quit apologizing for stuff, but I am sorry I didn't get this video out on Wednesday like I have been. Y'all know I lost my job or whatever, and I started working, with my brother, um, striping and power washing parking lots, man. And I feel like he's like intentionally trying to torture me so much that I don't come back because he works like 14-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, and it's all through the night. So my sleeping schedule's been all messed up and everything, and you know, been super tired and having a lot of trouble freaking getting anything done outside of work. So I mean, I do appreciate all you guys for caring what I have to say and for being here and the support, man. I'm up over 700 subscribers now. I picked up like 50, 60 subscribers since my last video. So I mean, that's really good for me. That's a big deal for me. That's a lot, for compared to what I have going on, in the past. So, and my views have been up over almost 2,000 views on my videos the last few times, which is a big deal for me as well. It's a lot of numbers for me. I know other channels do a lot better, but either way, man. Me and my girlfriend are about to go see Late Night with the Devil, man. I heard it's good. Y'all should go check it out. Go support it, man, because there's three things that I love, man, and it's MMA, horror movies, and fishing. So I mean, go support it, man. It's a low budget movie, but I heard it's really good, man. You go check it out. But thank you guys so much for caring what I had to say. Thank you for being here. I hope you win some money, and I'll holler at you guys later on.